Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success, and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. A little bit of a different situation for a couple of reasons. One, Travis is going to be leaving in about an hour or maybe less to his house to pack for a particular trip that I'll let him tell you about while I sit here and seethe.
Well, I'm actually going to attend a licensing show in Las Vegas. And the reason Josiah is seething is because he's been wanting to go. If you've listened to the show for a long time, that's been kind of on Josiah's list of things that he wants to learn about. Is look at his seethingness. It's been one of the things that he wants to learn about is licensing, and so it's kind of a silly reason that I'm going. Not really. The shorter long story is that I was going to get a bunch of bonus points if I could go pay cash for a trip in the certain window of time. And I need those points because next year my wife and I are planning on going to Hawaii for our 25th wedding anniversary. And so it would be like a companion pass on Southwest, which allows her to fly for free. So it's, worth $700-800 round trip flight to Hawaii, plus wherever else we go next year. And I was like, well, where can I go really cheap? That makes sense. Well, Vegas is super close. It's super cheap flight. And there happened to be this licensing show. So I said, hey, wife of mine, would you like to go to Vegas? And so I bought mine with cash, bought hers with points, and Josiah gets to stay here and seethe.
Yeah, so that's the story, and I guess he's gonna stick to it. So, but no, he's gonna go do that. So we're recording during the day here. It's almost 3 o'clock on a Monday, so you might hear the occasional sounds of tape dispensers going off, or the humming of laser machines, or hopefully not any breakage happening. So just bear with us because this isn't the normal time of day that we record, but we wanted to get a new episode out because we already did a rebroadcast. It seems like not even that long ago. So we didn't necessarily feel like we wanted to hit you guys with another rebroadcast episode. Right. So we decided to take some time and record a brand new episode for all of you. And Travis, there's another reason that this feels different, right? It's a little different thing going on here.
It does feel different.
What? There is something different here. What is happening? Any thoughts?
I think it might be season 4.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Roll not the pre-tape, but hey, we have bumpers here, so go with that. So welcome to season 4. As we've said multiple times, it's completely arbitrary. There's no really rhyme or reason to it. It's just we felt like doing it. Travis said, hey, we should make this season 4. Okay, that's fine. So the reason we wanted to do this is we started a new series of shows for you guys because Travis sent out a post on Facebook and said, hey, this is time for some improvement. Please give us your honest feedback, and feed us back. You did, which is a weird phrasing, but you did give us some feedback, and a lot of it was specifically talking about how we do a lot of stuff that's focused around production, which we try to pivot from because we understand that a lot of people listening are either A, just starting out, or B, drop shipping and not doing their own production. But it's hard, Travis, because we are we do our own production. So we're trying to kind of hit a what's the word I'm looking for? We're trying to be
happy medium.
Yeah, happy medium. We're intentional. We're trying to be intentional about hitting some stuff that is specifically about drop shipping and just starting out.
Yeah. So we're going to be starting a series. You probably noticed by the title of this particular episode 92. We're going to do a series on POD 101. This particular week, we'll get into it in the main event, but we're going to be talking about kind of like before you do anything, do these things, or at least consider them. And we'll get into more of that a little bit later. But we have another few episodes after this planned talking about things like where you should sell. And then like how do you organize your designs? These are things that we've touched on in the past, but if you haven't listened to every single episode we've ever done, and you don't, you just found us maybe a month or a couple months ago. These are great topics that we know a lot about and can speak to. And so we're going to talk about those over the next few weeks. Where you're going to sell, who you're going to sell with, like your fulfillment partner, all of these topics kind of in an POD 101 kind of few shows. I don't know, 3, 4, 5 shows, something like that. And then we'll get on with the rest of, our interviews and things that we've got planned for the rest of season 4.
Yep, absolutely. And before we get to all of that, of course, one thing that won't change in season 4 is there's always still going to be the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right, Travis, you brought this one this week, so lay it on us.
Well, I was just telling Josiah before the show that, I'm looking at trying to start maybe dieting, get a little healthier, and I've been looking into some particular foods, and so I was really amazed with grapes, and so I've been telling all kinds of people about the benefits of dried grapes, because it's all about raising awareness.
And that's this week's weekly dad joke, raisin awareness. Love it. And, raisins are one of those things that I don't mind them as much in the trail mix now that I've gotten older. I will eat them. I used to pick them out,
Really?
Always.
Weak sauce, man. Weak sauce.
They were gross. But things change. You mature. And it is what it is. So with that, we're going to go into a pretty actually interesting, which is why we picked it for this, point of interest.
Well, howdy, partner. Welcome to the point of interest part of the POD cast. So grab your hat and hold on tight because we got some learning to do.
All right, Travis, this week, the point of interest, there are some updates and the news about a service that's called Pirate Ship. So why don't we start with explain what Pirate Ship is for people who may not know exactly what they are, what they do, the service that they provide.
Sure. We talked about this on an episode previously. I believe it was when we had John West on as a point of interest, and he talked about it because he uses Pirate Ship. I know several other of you use Pirate Ship. Pirate Ship is probably the best description is it's a competitor to like stamps.com. It's not necessarily a competitor to what we use here, ShipStation, because it just functions a little differently. But basically, it's online postage, and you can get it. You can get online postage for FedEx, UPS, USPS, maybe more. I don't know because I don't use it. But it also has a few integrations. It doesn't have near as many integrations as like a ShipStation does, but it does integrate with Etsy and eBay. And I think like Macari. And so those orders that you would sell on those platforms would roll into Pirate Ship. So you don't have to like copy and paste the address and all of that. You kind of create your box sizes or your polymail bag sizes or whatever. And then, it prints it out there for you to where you can attach it to your goods and ship them out. And that's kind of what Pirate Ship is. Like you can do the same thing with stamps.com, but Pirate Ship, the interesting thing this week is Pirate Ship just recently sent out an email to their customers about some decreased rates.
Yes.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So, and it's huge when you are, in business, whether you're doing production or jobs, saving money on shipping and you're saving money anywhere is always a win. So they decreased some of their rates, and Brian Shackner, is that correct? Did I say that right that time? Shackner
Yep.
One of our listeners brought this to Travis's attention through a Facebook group. So if you were in the Facebook group, you would be privy to this early. You would know what was happening, and you'd already be like, oh yeah, I saw that. PrintOnDemandCast.com/Facebook is where you can go to join that group. So Travis and Brian tested the pirate ship versus ShipStation, stamps.com, and the difference was over $1 to ship the same weight and same dimensions to each other.
Yeah. Basically, I said, hey, Brian, put my address in your shipping too. I'll put my address in yours. So we're in the same zones, or same distance, I guess. And we put the same weights and same dims, and his was $1 less. It was over $1 less for priority mail. I was shocked. It was like a 3-pound, 8x6x6 or something like that. We just made up the dimensions.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
Yeah. And like you said, when we were talking about that this morning, like that's a substantial amount of money that you are set to save, if you could make the switch to pirate ship. But, again, savings in general is always preferred.
Yeah.
So,
I was just going to say, a lot of people use Etsy, just that buy Etsy shipping.
Yeah.
And because it integrates with Etsy, this is I would highly recommend you look into this because it's free to sign up. It's a totally free service, but I'll bet you would save money going with Pirate Ship. And what happens is, because there's an integration, it'll go right to Pirate Ship. As soon as you send it, Pirate Ship will then send the tracking back to Etsy. So it notifies your customers, and it like ticks all the boxes for Etsy, and you don't get into trouble by not supplying something that you're supposed to.
Right.
So it totally works great. And $1 every time you send priority mail.
That's huge.
For us,
yeah,
that would save us, thousands of dollars over the course of a year. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And like you said, even if you aren't really drop shipping or sending stuff out, even if it's a free account, make one. If you need to send something for a friend's birthday or a holiday or whatever, the account's free, and clearly it's going to be cheaper postage than you can get anywhere else. We talked, you say open the case with ShipStation to see if they price match. So we'll keep you guys updated. If we find out that ShipStation price matches, or stamps rather, that'll be the next point of interest. But yeah, why wouldn't you? I guess the downside would be the lack of integrations that you might need depending on what business you're doing or what you're using. But if you can save that money, do it. So kudos to Pirate Ship. Don't know how they figured out how to do it, but
we don't have an affiliate with this or anything. It's just go to pirateship.com if you're interested. We just thought it was such a cool, development that Brian brought to our attention that we wanted to pass it along to you guys in case you do need, like Josiah said, just to send a Father's Day gift or something. Save a little bit of money.
Yeah, why not? So again, it's pirateship.com, and tell them we sent you. Even if it asks, just tell them the PODcast, and they'll wonder, and then we can get an affiliate, and you guys can help us break ground with Pirate Ship. But avail yourself of that savings, and let us know if you do. Let us know if you open an account and know what you guys think and how it works for you, and we'd be happy to hear about that again in the Facebook group. So with that, we're going to move on to this week's main event. That was actually the very first bumper we ever recorded, and it was in my then office space.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's funny. So we talked about how we're going to start an arc of episodes and kind of going back to the basics, boiling it down. So POD 101, episode 1, if you will, or part 1, is talking a little bit more about what do you do before you sell? Like before you even hop on Redbubble, or before you get on a Merch by Amazon account, or we're just trying to take it back to the beginning. and kind of put ourselves back in those shoes. So
Mhm.
Travis, I think one of the first things, and we've had an episode on this before,
Yeah.
that was actually really well received by the listeners, but talking about what's your why. You need to establish why you want to get into the POD business. Is even if it's just,
Right.
I just want to make some extra cash. I heard it could be fun. I'm a designer with some extra time, or whatever that looks like for you. But knowing your motivation going into it definitely helps, at least initially, shape what the journey will look like and what you'll need to do in order to reach that end goal. But knowing your why, as in with most things, is always crucially important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And not sure. I was going to just try to find which episode that was. Maybe you can
Yeah.
look that up, Josiah. But um, there's a TED Talk by a guy named Simon Sinek that we talked about in the other episode. And if you haven't watched that TED Talk, just go to YouTube, do Simon Sinek, what's your why? And just type that in, and I guarantee it'll come up. It's amazing. First of all, it'll probably make you go down a rabbit hole with a bunch of Simon Sinek videos because he's really interesting and is a deep thinker, and it really can challenge you. But the other thing but that particular video in and of itself is there's a reason we kind of put it first. Do this before you start selling anything else. Figure out what your why is, mission statement, vision statements, those are all, everybody's like, everybody talks about those things, but they are pretty important. When we were asking people about, hey, how can we improve the POD cast? Chris Kretz posted our little vision statement right there, and he reminded us of our why for this podcast. And shout out to Chris. Thank you for doing that, because that was really insightful of you. And right on the top of our little website, it's like, we make shows to help you make money.
Right.
And so he was like, well, think about that when you're making a show. If it helps us make money, then that's a good episode to make. And if it doesn't, don't make that episode. It's pretty dang simple,
Yeah.
But that's part of our why. We're making these shows to help people, to help. We always talk about how this is the show that we wanted to have when we were starting out, and we couldn't find it, so we decided to just go ahead and make it. That's part of our why. But for you, what is your why? Is
Sure.
it like what Josiah said? Is it to make a few bucks? Is it to replace your income? Is it to make people laugh, share joy? There's a lot of, and it can be a multiple pieces. It doesn't have to just be one thing, but really taking some time to think about that's really important. Wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, 100%. And as you're talking, I'm trying to find that episode, but for some reason, it's not popping out. I'm going through our archive of shows and just trying to figure out which one that was, so we can point people back to that. I can't quite remember where it fell in the series of episodes, but I completely agree. I think it helps, like we said, it definitely helps shape the rest of what you need to do. If it's a full-time business, then if you're wanting to go into full-time business doing this, then you're going to have to front load, and you're going to have to invest a lot of time, and your time commitments, what's required of you. If it's a side gig thing, you're just trying to make some extra money, and that's basically it for the time being, then what's required of you. So establishing your why will definitely, help set expectations of yourself. You can also, use it you set expectations with your significant other, with your wife, your spouse, your husband, and they know, like, hey, this is why I'm doing this. And so you can help share the vision, and keep that in front of you as well, so that they can also help you figure out, or help you figure out how to support you in that vision. So finding your why is massively important. And I see Travis is scrolling just like looking. I was. I don't know. I keep going back and I don't think it was that far back, but I could be wrong. I just don't know what we called it. But
yeah, me either.
But it's there. So just go listen to every one of them, and then
or if anybody knows, just post in the Facebook group.
Yeah, please do,
'cause I can't
because
find
I
it.
do remember it was very well received, but that's about all I do remember. I don't know what we called it. I don't know if it was the power of gratitude, or I think it was
That's what I
what's your
thought.
why. I thought that's what we called it, but um,
Who knows?
happens when you name a
we've-
bunch of episodes.
We've slept since then a few times.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but yeah, I mean, I think that's a good kind of synopsis.
Oh,
of
I found it.
Oh, you
It
did?
has yes, it's episode 53. Why do people buy from you? And post office holiday rates. So, because only way I know is I looked in the description, and it says Simon Sinek has said people don't buy what you
Boom.
do, they buy why you do it. So we explore the question of what is your why. So yes, episode 53 in the archives is where you can go and listen to that full conversation. It's about an hour long or so, but really good information, talking more about Simon Sinek in there, and I just think it's definitely beneficial. So
Yeah.
the next step, Travis, is legalese stuff you have to do to get yourself in order on a financial side of it, the stuff that most people just absolutely hate to think of, and maybe don't even really understand or think that they should do that, but it is beneficial in the long run. So why don't we go into talking about DBAs and S corps, and the back end side of what it takes to establish your business before you get going.
Yeah, and we'll just say up front, we are not legal or tax advisors. You need to consult your legal or tax advisor. Don't take our word for it. Find somebody that knows a lot more about this stuff. I know just enough to be dangerous, and I'm just going to kind of give you my opinion. But discover this or research this yourself if it's something you want to move forward with. But I mean, the basic idea is like, what are you as far as your business goes? You can do what's called a sole proprietorship. A lot of people will say it's a DBA, which is just an acronym for doing business as. So I could have, Travis's pancake shop, where I ride on a bike with a little pancake fryer on, and I make pancakes for people at the park or whatever. And that's Travis Ross doing business as Travis's Pancake Shop. So that's DBA, Travis's Pancake Shop. It's still, I'm a sole proprietor. In other words, I'm taxed. My business is taxed like it's me, like it's just extra money that I get. So what happens is that any money that my business makes, all of it, any money that's beyond like what I've spent in pancake batter and bike tires and spatulas is going to basically be taxed as income to me, and I'm going to have to pay all of the taxes on that as like wages. Okay, so like I'm basically paying the self-employment tax, which so if you go to your work and you get a paycheck, well, your business pays half of that tax and you pay the other half. But in this case, when I'm a DBA, I pay both sides because I am both sides, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
For everything that my business makes. So that's the DBA or the sole proprietorship option, which I think is fine for everybody to start that. And we'll get into like how to even do that in the next point. But the other the other kind of tax entity that you can choose to become, and there are typically you have to enroll for this at the beginning of the year. You have like 30 days at the beginning of the year, at least as far as I recall. But there are some situations that you can get them to change that in the middle of the year. But becoming an S corp is another great way to maximize your tax savings. If you are a business, and you're actually making sales, you're actually doing some things. The difference with an S corp is that an S corp is its own entity, and you have to file the business's taxes.
Right.
So that's a little bit more money at the end of the year, but because of that, the business itself can pay you, the owner, a salary, which the IRS says needs to be a reasonable salary. So if your business isn't, if you're buying a lot of things and and buying a lot of things for your business, you have a lot of deductions like your internet, your cell phone, things that you need to do business for your, if you have a lot of those deductions at the end of the year, maybe your business on paper shows that it only made $10,000. Well, you could say reasonably that you only paid yourself $1,000 as an employee of the business.
Right.
So you're only going to pay the wage tax on that 1,000. The other 9,000 is going to be taxed in the business on the business's tax return.
Sure.
And it's not wages. It's not personal income. It's taxed at a way lower bracket. Okay. A smaller amount. And so on that $9,000, maybe you save $1,000 in taxes that you would have paid had you brought that 9,000 into your own entity, the Travis Ross, my filing of my taxes. And I know this is really dry, but hopefully I explained it in a way that makes sense. The bottom line is that if you are actually making a decent amount of money, S corps a lot of times will make sense. And I would highly, highly recommend getting with the CPA and asking him some of these questions. Should I be a sole proprietor? Should I be, here's what I made, here's my books, here's my expenses. Should I be a sole proprietor or should I be an S corp? Because you can save yourself a lot of money.
Yeah, 100%. So the way you can go and kind of go about starting this whole process is going to, whatever state you're in, going to the Secretary of State website or calling or whatever it is that you would need to do, here in Colorado, when I started my LLC, my business, went there, started a new business, fill out all the paperwork and had everything they walked you through the process of how to do it, from what I remember anyway, of how to do everything. But, our Secretary of State, kind of looks like this here. And so lots of options. I'm sure I'm sure they all might look fairly similar as far as the options as to what you can do. You see business trademarks, trade names, start a new business, renew a business, that kind of stuff. That's where you're going to be primarily when you're going to register and kind of start and open this business. Travis, what's something that is important to keep in mind when you are doing that? We talked a little bit about EINs, why those are important. An EIN number, for those of you that don't know, is kind of like a social security number for your business. Right. It's a distinct number that you will get for your S corp, for your LLC, whatever it is that you open for business purposes. But also, it stands for employer identification number. So if the time comes that when you are employing people, if the business is growing and you're deciding to do production yourself, or you have someone come on board to help you with stuff in your office, an EIN number is going to be very important when you're wanting to hire more people. Yeah,
it's kind of how the government keeps track of which business employs who, based on those EINs. But yeah, so when you're signing up for, people that are going to sell you stuff at a wholesale rate, for us, it's t-shirt suppliers, mug suppliers, our different vendors. They need that EIN because that shows them. And then we also have a Colorado state tax registration, and it shows that we are a wholesaler, and so they can sell to us tax exempt because we have that document. And all of this stuff can be got on that Secretary of State website. You can also before you register, you start your business, one of the things you want to do is you want to look up what they call trade name. So for us, it's Make Your Mark Design. So Make Your Mark, as you can imagine, is pretty widely used. Everybody has heard, Make Your Mark, and it's a good business name. So when I looked that up in Colorado, there was a Make Your Mark. So I added Make Your Mark Design, and there wasn't anything in Colorado. So I basically claimed that trade name and registered that as a DBA underneath my parent S corp corporation. And so but I got a separate EIN for that and registered that and paid the $10 a year. So nobody else can come in and Make Your Mark Design in Colorado legally. So I just protected myself a little bit with that. So that may be something you well, definitely, I would recommend you look into that. Kind of protecting yourself, the name that you want. I think there are other make your mark designs in the nation, but
Right.
to the state, it doesn't matter because I'm not operating outside of Colorado, my physical location. So
Sure.
that's at least how I understand it. Again, not an expert by any stretch of the imagination with this stuff. This is just kind of what I've discovered as I've gone along. And correct me if I'm wrong. Just don't embarrass me in the Facebook group. Send me a private message.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's definitely a lot. I think, it's a lot of the minutia that a lot of people don't like, but also
Yeah.
maybe don't think of. You might think that, I'm just going to open up a Merch by Amazon account and that's all I need to do. You're not understanding or thinking of the back end work to do up into the point of actually listing a shirt. So
Mhm.
when in Travis and I's discussion, it's like, well, if we're going to go from the beginning, it's got to be even before the idea of a Redbubble on Amazon, which we're going to get into the platforms that are available to you to sell on in future episodes. Right. This one I think
Right.
was episode 1, what to know before you start. So
Yeah.
episode 2 will be the next step, and 3 the next step, and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
the last thing to kind of talk about is, after opening all these things to start a business to make money, where are you going to put that money? Banking is definitely something to think of. I know I have a separate business account for my LLC that I opened
Mhm.
instead of having it all funneled to my personal account, because I would imagine the IRS probably frowns on that. So they'd like to make sure that you're because like Travis said, you're held to the standard of a reasonable wage, which of course
Mhm.
can be up to interpretation. But when everything is that you're doing in your bank or in your business is done out of a business bank account, it's just easier to track what you
Mhm.
spent money on, or the write-offs, or business
Yeah.
expense, when it's all just in one place instead of siphoning out the personal items on your personal checking account. It's just easier to keep things organized that way as well.
Yeah, and you may say, well, Travis, I keep a spreadsheet, and I just whenever I
Yeah.
swipe my personal card or my debit card from my personal bank, I just write it down. Well, I would say that's awesome, and that can work for a season.
Yeah.
Um, but try scaling that,
Not permanent. Yeah, totally.
And what happens if you forget to write that thing down and you're too busy or whatever, and then you get audited, and and then you have to like do that for.
Yeah, then you have
It,
to go backwards and retroactively do all of that.
yeah, it's just
And
cleaner.
it's way cleaner. I know I'm sure we all can speak from experience where you have that idea of like, when I first got a debit card, when I first got my own checking account, I was trying to budget and reconcile checkbooks and all that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
I was the same way. Like, I'll just make a note in my phone, or I have a spreadsheet and I'll just do it when I get home. And like at the beginning, it was easy, but
Yeah.
then it's really super easy to just slip into this habit of, I'll do it later, and then you don't. But in a business context, when things are scaling and when you're spending a lot of money frequently, especially in this line of business, let's say that you do eventually have a production space and you're buying blanks and mugs and
Mhm.
shipping labels and all this kind of stuff. There's so much that you're spending on a daily basis that trying to be dependent on you entering it into a spreadsheet on top of everything else that you also have to do to keep the business going. It'll be very, very messy, and you'll find yourself in a spot where you're going to have to
Yeah.
retroactively go back through your bank account anyway.
I was I was a youth pastor long time ago. Used to follow this other big youth ministry, and I really thought they did an excellent job, and they did, and learned a lot from this particular youth minister. And one of the things that I still kind of quote to this day that I learned from him was, um, do now what you want to do when you're 10,000, so if you have 100 kids coming, pretend like you have 10,000 kids coming. What would you do?
Yeah.
How would the check-in system be? How
Yeah.
would you have security? Would you and like build it like you want it to be
Yeah.
when it has already scaled. So start by building for your future.
Yeah.
And I've taken that and I've really applied it to our business. And I'm still learning. I'm still applying things that I want to have later down the road. But the whole purpose of this episode is you really want to, you don't want to just get into this and then a year down the road, your stuff starts actually moving and you're doing a lot better. And you're like, oh man, now I've got to change my Etsy bank account, which, I've heard horror stories about people changing their bank account and boom, their account gets flagged and shut down. You don't want to have to deal with that later. Just start it. Just begin. Because the other thing that it does, it'll light a fire under your butt. Man, I did all of this work, setting up my sole proprietorship with the Secretary of State, getting an EIN. I got a business checking account. I better freaking make this work.
Yeah.
You're not giving yourself a way out, because you've done all that work to kind of start it.
You got a lot of skin in the game, time-wise,
Exactly.
and you're pretty invested. And I think we've talked about that whole mindset of like you're talking about preparing for what you want in creating systems, right? And organization. And when you're creating file organization, think about where you want to be as opposed to where you are now, because inevitably you're going to outgrow that thing and then have to revisit it. But if you use some foresight and try and cast some vision about where you want to be, it's easier to create those systems that are more scalable with you. So that's another thing we're going to touch on in this arc of episodes. I think at this point, Travis, it's 4 or 5, maybe not a trilogy, a saga, maybe. I don't know quite what the terminology is when it's more than 3. Marvel.
Is it an epic universe?
An epic universe? Yes,
episodes?
I think so. Of episodes. So,
Travis, metaverse.
Do you think they'll have print on demand in the metaverse, just like fictional people creating fictional shirts that people pay real money for? Because if that's a thing, we need to get in on it soon.
Yes, for sure.
Be our first. The only reason I would ever join the metaverse would be to print pretend shirts and make for real money, because people are disassociating with their lives.
Right.
So anything else though before we wrap this one up?
I don't think so. I think we said it all. Really think about this stuff before you jump in. And if I guess the one thing I will say is, like, if you're already down the road and on Etsy, you used your social security number instead of going to the Secretary of State and getting an EIN, it's not too late to fix some of that stuff. You can go ahead and just go ahead and do the hard work. If we're talking next week about organization or, a couple weeks or whatever, and you're like, oh my gosh, my file system is just garbage, or, I've never thought about my SKUs or any of that stuff. It's rip the Band-Aid off. The quicker you can rip the Band-Aid off, the more beneficial it'll be for your business in the long run. And that includes, your banking. If you're still putting everything into your personal account, go get a business checking account and figure it out. Go get your EIN, go to register with your state, check your trade name, make sure it's all good. Go get a business checking account and then tell Etsy, hey, I got a business checking account. I want to do this, and rip the Band-Aid off now, because it'll be better if you do it now than if you do it in a year or longer. God forbid.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would say we hope that this arc of episodes would serve as a motivator instead of a demotivator. So by no means do we want to make you feel bad about, like, well, you didn't do this first and so you did it all wrong. There's, this is a very strange saying, and I'm going to follow up. I'm just going to say it because it will follow up and offend more cat lovers, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I've never understood why they say that. And maybe next week for the point of interest, I'll find out the etymology of that phrase and why people call it that. But seriously, there's not one correct way necessarily to get your foot in the door, but let these things kind of serve as motivators and reminders, even of things that I probably should have done that, and okay, I'm going to go do that now, and then fix everything. And it might take me some time, but it'll be better than down the road, like Travis was saying, that delayed confrontation of sorts. So that's for me in that discussion. Like, I just hope that these are motivators and reminders instead of making people feel like they should just quit, because it's obviously not the goal, and that's not what we want people to think. We're just trying to make sure everyone's ship is set to sail for success. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for listening again. I can see in Travis's eyes, he's got Vegas on the mind, and so he's just ready to get out of here. So I'm going to say my spiel and then we'll be done. But thank you guys for listening. We're excited to bring the remainder of these episodes to you in the coming weeks. If you have a question, please, seriously, join the Facebook group. This week's point of interest comes directly from the Facebook group. So if you're ever thinking like, man, I wish they would talk about this, or I found this thing, I hope they talk about it, you got to let us know, because odds are you see things that we'll never see. So you can post in the Facebook group. You can contribute to the content of the show, and we'll be sure to shout you out just like we did with Brian on this week's point of interest. But again, join the Facebook group. printondemancast.com/Facebook is where you need to go. We're also on Instagram, printondemancast.com/Instagram and /YouTube. Those are all of our social media channels at the moment. printondemancast.com is a functional website, so you can go there as well. We have a merch store. The easiest way to support the show is merch. You can buy a shirt. If you like what we're doing, you want to keep the content coming. If you don't know already, Travis and I do this for fun. It's a hobby. It's a passion project. This isn't something that is our full daytime jobs. But if you want to support the show, that's an easy way to do it as well. printondemancast.com/shop is where you can go to do that. You can also email us if you're not big on social media. info@printondemancast.com. You can shoot us an email. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, your favorite dad joke, suggest a dad joke. All of the communication is definitely welcome and appreciated, including reviews. Travis, have we had any new reviews since the last couple of episodes where you've specifically said?
I checked last week. I have not checked recently, but as of last week, no new reviews. Josiah.
Okay, well, we will put out a plea again for more reviews, or at least additional reviews. 5-star, of course. If you're listening on the podcast app, with Apple, you can leave a little bit of a blurb. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us some feedback and the 5-star review. On Spotify, when you're on the feed itself on Spotify, the printondemancast.com, or not .com, but Print on Demand Cast feed, there's a little top left corner of the feed there. You can click on it and give us a star rating as well. It is greatly appreciated. And even though we like to pitch it as it just helps, our egos, that's only partially true. It also helps the algorithm and people that need this information, especially this next series of episodes coming up about just getting into the business. And us revisiting that would be vital and very important for people that are just starting out their journey. So if you know someone that's considering print on demand, share this. Leave a review, and let people know that this information is out there in a format that is easily digestible and that is entertaining as well, because this is the show, again, that Travis and I wish we had when we started our print on demand cast journey. Not the demand cast journey, just print on demand. Those things are synonymous with me now, so I just repeat them all the time, and so I just throw cast at the end of print on demand pretty frequently. So with that, we will say goodbye for this week. For Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand Cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.